section on the transverse abdominus. And last time, so we've got a few videos on the diaphragm, and now we've moved on to the other main breathing muscle in the body, which is the transverse abdominus. And I'm going to refer to that as the TA today. And sometimes it's referred to as the corset muscle. And this muscle is got two main functions. We've already, I have done a workshop on this already. This is more of a recap. So if you want to spend more time understanding it, there is a workshop. But basically, the TA's got two main functions, and its main function is in breathing, and the second function is to help with stability of the spine. So I would like to try and get you to understand that these two functions can happen simultaneously. And it's important that they both can happen simultaneously for us to be able to move better and to be able to maintain, you know, a good breathing rhythm, or to be able to keep breathing throughout our movement. And this is something I think is sometimes gets confused when we're talking about the core and how we engage the core. Very often that in itself creates tension in the muscle. We contract it and hold it, and then it can't do its job as a breathing muscle. So that's basically what I want to try and explain for you and experience today, and see if we can improve the way that we breathe within our movement. So the transverse abdominus is a muscle that sits around between your pelvis and your rib cage. It's so actually, the actual muscle is here at the side of the body. Okay, so its fibers run this way transversely, so this way. So when we contract the muscle, it gets smaller, so our waistline narrows. And when we lengthen the muscle, our waistline gets bigger. Okay, so that's how it works. So if we're breathing regularly, hopefully you are, if you're breathing efficiently and well, then this muscle, which is responsible for the narrowing and the length and the thickening of the waistline, you should see an improved tone in that muscle when we're using it in our breathing more effectively. So, first of all, where is it? Let's just pop our fingers, if you can do this with me, just pop your fingers between your pelvis and your rib cage, so in the waistline. And when you do this, I want you to just cough. Can you feel that when you cough, that your tone increases in that area? It turns up. Someone else waiting to get in, I'll just let them in. Okay, so when you cough, you get this thickening in the, or a tone in the waistline. Hi Elaine, we have already started. I'm going to have to just carry on, I'm afraid, because it's all for the recording as well. So, okay, so we've established where it is, and when you cough, you feel its tone increase. And that's because when we cough, what it's doing is it's creating more tone to help us to lift and assist the diaphragm pushing up and out with the air, expelling. Yeah, so it's like this. So you can feel where it is there. Now, if you keep your fingers there and give me a really big breath in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. Sometimes this is easier to feel when you're standing. It just is, you know, worth trying if you're struggling to feel any change. So when we breathe in, we should feel that the waistline gets wider, thicker. And when we breathe out, that the waistline narrows. So breathe in to the tummy, let the abdomen expand. And breathe out. And feel it narrow. So just practice that a couple more times. And as I said, there is a workshop that gives you more this in more detail. But I just want to show you exactly why our abdomen has to expand. So this is my diaphragm. When I breathe in, these are my lungs. My diaphragm goes down. And when it comes down, it's entering into the abdominal cavity. It's pressing downwards into the abdominal area. And we've got our liver, we've got our stomach, our intestines all in this area. So when the diaphragm comes down and we take a full breath in and we're using the diaphragm, this contents can't go backwards because we've got our spine here. It can't go downwards because we've got the pelvis here. The only way that our abdominal contents, the only place it's got to go is forwards. So that's why when we breathe in, we're doing a good full contraction of the diaphragm and allowing the lungs to fully inflate, fill, the diaphragm comes down. If this is my abdominal contents, I've only got two hands, I'm going to lose the diaphragm now, but show you with the lungs. So the lungs inflate, the diaphragm, which is my abdominal contents, down, needs more space for it in the chest. These have to come forward. Yeah, they can't go down because my pelvis is there. They can't go back because my spine's there. So my abdominal contents cavity has to come forward. So this is your transverse abdominus as a muscle, and it's around, here. When I breathe in, this muscle has to stretch to support my abdomen as the cavity or the contents have to move forward to allow me to have more room up here for my lungs to inflate. Yeah, so when I exhale, this muscle then contracts to help draw these in, so the diaphragm pushes up and the air goes out. Yeah, so when we breathe in, the diaphragm comes down and the abdomen comes forward. But if you've done the diaphragm one, we know when the diaphragm comes down, the ribs expand. Okay, so if you put your hand on your chest and the other hand on your tummy, now when you breathe in, what you should feel is the rib cage expanding and your tummy coming forward, yeah, the abdomen going forward. So just sitting with good alignment, so make sure we're not kind of flexing our spine or gripping the spine. Just try and find a comfortable place where we're nicely stacking the pelvis and the rib cage. Relax your shoulders and just breathe in, and I want you to notice or allow your abdomen to move forward and your ribs to expand. And when you exhale, the muscles are contracting in the waistline to draw those abdominal contents in as the diaphragm lifts up. It's got more space again. So as you inhale, the diaphragm or the rib cage expands and the abdominals go forward. As you exhale, the abdomen draws in and your ribs come back down. Yeah, so everything is expanding, abdomen forward, and then exhale, and it comes in. As I inhale, the abdomen comes forwards and stretching that muscle. That's your TA, the muscle stretching. And then when you exhale, because it draws it back in, it's contracting, and the diaphragm is lifted. So just a couple more breathing into the abdomen, let the abdomen come forwards, let the TA stretch. And on the out, it draws in. Good. So the TA, because this is the one we're talking about, the other diagram is covered in the other videos, but the TA, let me just explain to you how we strengthen a muscle. A muscle can only be strengthened if you can stretch it and then contract it, yeah? When it lengthens and shortens. This is how we create more resilience in the muscles when we want to train them, how we get them to be stronger, how we get them to be more functional, how we get them to work for us. They have to stretch, and they have to shorten. And that goes for every muscle, skeletal muscle that we have in the body. So when we are breathing, the transverse abdominus, the TA, is stretching when we inhale and contracting as we exhale. So it's actually getting quite a lot of work every day. However, what happens when our breathing pattern goes into more of a sympathetic nervous system and our breathing stays up here? The diaphragm doesn't come down. So what do you think is happening to that TA? Do you think that the TA is getting its contracting and lengthening if our breathing is up here? Does it need to stretch when our breathing is up here? And if it doesn't stretch, how can we then contract it? So is it getting the training that it needs to stay functional and strong if our breathing is shallow and up here? Probably not. Yeah, probably not. And that's the same with the diaphragm. If we're in our sympathetic nervous system, and we quite often go there for many reasons, and that's not always just in a stressful environment time when you can consciously be stressed, but just by being distracted, just by not being very well, by being, not such good posture. Any stress, physical, emotional stress in the body can put us into our sympathetic nervous system, and our breathing then becomes shallow. And so those muscles that we use for breathing become inhibited, or they're certainly not being used as well as they need to do breathing well for us. So when we focus on our breath and we bring the breath into more deeper breathing, our abdominal breathing, as it's explained, as sometimes named, then we can start to get this feeling of that muscle lengthening and contracting. And when it's lengthening, it's also strengthening for the muscle. This is called eccentric strengthening. And the more we can train the muscle in its lengthening phase, the better it is at supporting our internal organs. Yeah, so when we breathe in, the muscle isn't just going floppy and releasing, it's being stretched with a load going through it. And that's how it supports us. And it's the same as the pelvic floor. Yeah, these are more effective in terms of stability when they're in their lengthening phase. So in a class or in an activity, and the cue is engage your core, have a think about what you do in your body when you are given that cue. How do you respond to that cue, engage your core, or put it all in? You know, what we tend to do, and I think this is what I see a lot, and, forgive me if that's not the case for you, but what I do see a lot is we tighten, don't we? We tighten our tummy muscles. Now, you tighten your tummy muscles for me now, so engage your core, or suck it in, or pull it tight, or hold it, yeah, support yourself, come on, you need to brace, because you're going to lift your foot off the floor, come on, you've got this, so you brace, now try and breathe. Keep your tummies tight, but now you can breathe. Can you breathe into your belly when you're holding your tummy tight? Not very easily. So when we engage and we brace, or we tighten, or we contract our abdominals for a reason to be stable, we're actually inhibiting our breath. We're inhibiting the transverse abdominis from lengthening and shortening. And it's the transverse abdominis' other job is to stabilize your spine. So if you're inhibiting it by fixing it either in its lengthened phase or its shortened phase, but it's not moving, it's not any good for us for stability either. Okay, it's because we've just inhibited it. And stability needs to be dynamic, because the amount of stability you need when you're in one position is different from the amount of stability you need in the very next position. So if we're just holding, we're only got what we've got. We're not adaptable. We can't change the amount of stability that we need for maybe the next movement, which might demand more stability. So we need to allow our breathing. We need to allow the transverse abdominis to strengthen, lengthen, and shorten. But we need to allow that whilst we're breathing, whilst we're moving as well. And this is where I think we get really in trouble, when we're used to, or we've got into the habit of, and I do it, I know everybody, most people in the class doing it, when we're doing more complex movements, what's the first thing we do? We hold our breath. You know, when things get hard, we hold our breath. And this is where we need to kind of go, hang on, how am I breathing? We have to remind ourselves and change that habitual kind of response and bring ourselves back into the belly breathing. Or when we talk about the belly breathing, it's still allowing the abdomen to lengthen and shorten. The more stability you need, the less that will move, because that muscle will naturally tone to support you, but we still need to be able to breathe. So in stillness in a chair, where we've got no demand for stability, or very little demand for stability, we can allow that quite big movement in the abdomen. Let's stand up and I'll practically have a look at this. So if you stand and you put your hands inside of your waistline on the transverse abdominis muscle and breathe a couple of breaths in. I'm going to hold mine like this. I tend to feel it better when I'm holding it like this rather than just sticking in. When you do like a big, fast, high intensity contraction, I think that's easier to feel there. But just holding your hands around your waistline, taking some breaths, allow the muscle to stretch as you inhale. You'll feel your waistline get thicker, and as you exhale, feel how the waistline narrows a little bit. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in, abdomen comes forward, transverse abdominus stretches. Now stand on one leg, but carry on breathing. So you may feel that there's more tone under your fingers than if you've got both feet down. As soon as you lift that leg up, your trunk muscles, their tone will increase, otherwise you'd fall over. Yeah, but we can let that happen because our body will work out how much tone it needs to hold us up on one foot. But can you still breathe? And then move the leg around, but still breathe. You can shake the leg. Can you feel the tone increase more of the hands when you have this greater demand for stability? Yeah, when we're less stable and things are moving, can you feel underneath your hands how the tone of those muscles goes up, but you can still breathe? We don't want them to go like this, where we just fix. We need to breathe. The abdomen needs to stretch. Place that foot down. And when that foot goes down, notice how the tone around your trunk is reduced because there's less demand for stability. Just breathe. Feel the waistline expanding, the stretch of the muscle. Feel the waistline narrow. On the exhalation, as it's drawing in, the diaphragm is coming up, the waistline narrows. The abdominal contents comes back in and up. And as we inhale, it comes out. Stand on your other leg. Just notice the change in the tone under your hand. You don't have to hold your breath. You don't have to ask for it. It will happen. It will happen as much as it needs to support the movement or the activity you're doing. We still need to breathe. You can move the leg around. You can shake the leg. You know, if I put you on a unstable surface, if I put you on a wobble board, or I put you on a ball, which could be really hard, we would have to work even more to set, you know, the tone would have to go up even more. Move the leg around. Feel how the tone changes. When I bring my leg in, I need less than when I take my leg out. But what we need to be able to do is breathe within our movement. Yeah, so you can move your spine. Yeah, you can move your trunk. You can feel the tone of those muscles changing. And even with both feet down, breathe. Move your spine side to side. Let the moving muscles move you, let your breathing muscles breathe for you. It can all happen at the same time. Great stuff. Yeah, take a seat. And this is something that is really good to practice, particularly in sessions that you're doing, in your Pilates, in your bar classes. Yeah, even when you're walking the dog, doing your day, can you still allow the function of your breathing muscles? We've got the pelvic floor to cover as well. Now, we're just going to finish with a way to strengthen the muscle in its narrowing phase. So I can't put any dumbbells on your TA. We don't have the, we can't actually access it in the same way because it does this narrowing. So how are we going to make it stronger? We increase the resistance in the muscle as we're letting our air out. So how do I reduce, or how do I make it harder? I make my outlet of my air smaller. So this is where we do the breath. Yeah, where we make the outlet. So we've got to push more, or we've got to work harder to get the air out. You've got to use more force. And it's that force that will start to strengthen the muscle as it's narrowing your waistline. So you can do this sat down if you prefer. And you're going to take a breath in, and you're going to let your abdomen expand, or your waistline expand. Hold it. And now on the out breath, really small hole out through the mouth. Every drop out. Hold. And breathe in. Let it stretch. Good. Nice big movement in the rib cage. Good. And then out breath. Hold. Breathe in. Let it stretch. Let your body move. And again, out breath. hold, and breathe in. We'll just do it one more, because sometimes we can make us go a little bit dizzy, so I want to be careful. Don't do too many too soon. Inhale, feel the body, let that transverse abdominis stretch. And then the out breath again. You can do this with a straw as well. If you've got a little straw, you can blow out through a straw. It has the same effect, just makes that outlet smaller. Empty every drop of your breath. And as you're emptying your breath, the waistline is drawing in and the lungs are being, the air's being pushed out your lungs because the diaphragm is coming up. It comes up, it pushes the air out as your abdomen narrows, waistline narrows. At the end, you hold. And then you're going to feel your breath again, feel the air. Diaphragm lowers and the abdomen comes forward. That TA stretches, gets the waistline thickens, the abdomen comes forward. And then one more exhalation. We're just making ourselves work harder to push the air out, narrowing the air outlet. It's like a corset around you. And breathing. Perfect. Well done. So hopefully that's kind of started to get you to think a little bit differently about how we engage the core. I am going to do some more workshops on the core, because this is something that I feel really strongly about when we need to access these muscles, the diaphragm, the transversus, and the pelvic floor. These muscles stabilize your spine and your rib cage and your pelvis. And sometimes it's very easy to miss them because we're very strong in our global muscles or active in our global muscles. So we get away with it because we can hold without, our back muscles. I can use my abs, but then we're not breathing very efficiently. And that creates this tension. And that's when we get stiff in our spine, we get stiff in the hips, because we are using our muscles that move us for things that they're probably not best designed for. And we're very amazing human bodies. We adapt and we do it, but is it the most efficient way? Is it the best way to use your body? And hopefully by understanding the function of your breath, you can see why that is probably the most important thing to get right. A, because it's vital for life, but B, it's such a big part of our well-being, mentally and physically. So just hope that that's given you a little bit of an idea of why it's important to breathe during our movements,